Iron Maiden, Somewhere in Time. 8 tracks for 51 minutes. The 6th studio album from the UK 5-piece, with again the same lineup being maintained. Released September 1986 by EMI and Capitol. Produced by Martin Birch. Recorded at Compass Point Studio in Nassau. And Visselord Studios in the Netherlands. 2 singles were released, Wasted Years and Stranger in a Strange Land, taking the album to number 11 in the US, number 3 in the UK, while doing very well across Europe, going 2 times platinum in Canada, platinum in the US and gold in Brazil, Germany and the UK. This album is cited as selling over 1 million copies in the US alone and is their first used guitar synthesizers. This album also sees much less writing contributions from Bruce Dickinson, but more from Adrian Smith. Go for it.
Adding synthesizers to Iron Maiden sounds crazy, but it works perfectly. At this point, it's what they needed to make them take them to a different place. They could have played it safe and just stuck to doing what they were doing over and over, but they took a chance and it worked. It's still very much Iron Maiden, but by altering the sound a bit more, it's more accessible to a wider audience, but they still maintain the long songs and the complex arrangements. Bruce Dickinson sounds amazing throughout this album. Once again, they set a theme for the album, taking Eddie into the futuristic Blade Runner-inspired world. It suits the overall feel of the music. At this point, they're starting to draw more and more on movies for lyrical inspiration. Got to point out the cover. There's so much fun to have trying to point out all the references on there. Cool. Overall, I love this album. I gave it 8 out of 10. Caught Somewhere in Time, Wasted Years, and the Loneliness of the Long Distance Runner.
All right, I'll go. Adding synthesizers to Iron Maiden is an interesting thing, and they really got it right on Seventh Son of a Seventh Son. On this one, I reckon they missed. This is probably my least favourite of all the Bruce Dickinson albums, funnily enough. And oddly enough, I think that's largely due to the Adrian Smith's influence on the writing. It took it away from what I want from a Maiden album. Okay. You lost the gallop. Yeah, it was more sort of a straight-out riffy kind of thing, and I just don't think the strength of the songs was there for Iron Maiden to carry out when you're just kind of doing a 4 or 5 chord belter, as opposed to a more epic Steve Harris sort of style song. So I felt it just kind of missed the mark a little bit. It wasn't bad. The high points on this album are pretty good. Why Heaven Can Wait was not released as a single on this, I'm never quite sure, because that seemed to be... it seems to be the obvious single, and I think the strongest song on the album. But I think it's the hookier ones that almost have a pop sensibility that are actually the strongest songs on the albums. I feel the other ones are a bit weak. Although my highlight is still always on this album. It's got to be Alexander the Great, because I reckon that's a fantastic tune, and quite an epic one as well. Overall, I also gave this one a 7 out of 10. It doesn't jump out at me, but it's not terrible. Highlights: Alexander the Great, Heaven Can Wait, Wasted Years, and Caught Somewhere in Time.
Okay, harsh.
Here we go.
7 out of 10's on harsh.
The songwriting on this album it's extremely strong for mine, and on the whole, there are gems and classics all throughout it. There are too many to mention, so I'm just going to mention my 3 favourites. So Wasted Years, that's probably my second favourite song of the band overall. It's about making the best of what you've got, and it's just really moving, and it's just a real composed track. The guitars have that weird vortexy kind of feel, which, obviously introducing synthesizers. I think there's even some guitar in this. So, and that song's just got this really strange melancholic yet very uplifting feel to it. Loneliness of the Long Distance Runner, that's criminally underrated for mine. It begins with what I can describe only as clearly one of the best metal riffs ever recorded.
I've always struggled with that song. I've always struggled with that song.
I don't like that song at all.
I love it.
That song always loses me.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. Built slowly, finally explodes into aggressive. Here you go, Brendan. Heavy Metal Marathon will be. See. What's our team name? Pub stuff. Anyway.
Team Pub Crawl.
Team Pub Crawl. Yep.
Starting here, clearly.
Maiden's hit. The up-tempo numbers have a huge risk of either becoming intolerably, really repetitive or absolutely excellent. And for me, this song is the latter. Just that middle solo section, and Dave Murray and Adrian Smith's work on this is fantastic. As Brendan mentioned, Alexander the Great. So this one really stands out amongst all the epic tracks in Maiden's catalogue for me. Just do this, go back and re-listen to that jazzy breakdown around about the 4-minute mark. So if you have a listen to that, pretend you're the drummer and try to drum along to that or keep it beat, and still listen to what Adrian Smith is doing, and try to remember where you're at and stuff. Look, lesser drummers, and I've got here Lars Ulrich as an example, he'd have a brain aneurysm trying to work that out. It's so technically complex, I love it. Musically, it's probably the best song Maiden have ever written for mine. It's up there.
Wow. Come on.
So, actually, Yeah, so that's it. And the other one is, the thing is with this album, and this is where I'll digress a bit from these guys, even the not so great songs on it, in my mind, are still great. Songs like Sea of Madness and Deja Vu, they're dwarfed by some of the other songs on this album because other songs are so good, but they're still bloody great. Now, you put those songs on a lot of other Maiden albums up to that point, they'd be standout tracks for me. So look, put it this way, there were 8 tracks and I gave 5 of them 10 out of 10. And the rest of them being 7 and above. That's how much I love this album. Summer in Time has been my favourite album by the band. Well, actually, it became my favourite time. It used to be Power Slave, and in preparing for this, I listened to Summer in Time again. I just had it on repeat. This has now become my number 1 favourite Maiden album for me.
Wow.
So there isn't a single song on this album that would be mediocre or subpar. Look, it's a classic, and in my mind, it's unequalled by anything they've done before or since. Standout tracks, or these are the ones I gave 10 out of 10 to. Wasted Years, Heaven Can Wait, Loneliness of the Long Distance Runner, Stranger in the Strange Land, Alexander the Great, and I gave it a 9 out of 10.
Wow. Okay. All right. Well, the first thing you pick up on is noticeable change in sound on this. The synthesizers have a pretty big impact. It works, it's just different. It's interesting even more so because the previous little jab at things like this with there's a line in it, I think, on the Peace of Mind album where they say no synthesizers or hidden agendas, and they've gone and used synthesizers for this record. So it's kind of you look back in time and you go to this and you go, nah, maybe you want to take that back from back before. Big 80s feel on this. Those reverbs and synth tones really give that vintage timestamp to it. Still sounds good and fresh though. Some seriously big reverbs in here, as I said before. Nice warmth in it too, I thought. I thought they caught that really, really well. And I reckon for the first time for this band, the compressor was running a bit too hot for me. You can hear it on some of the biggest cymbal hits, for example. You've got to listen out for it. It doesn't take away from the listen, but for me it's there. You can just hear things just getting crunched. For all that though, it's probably the most vibrant they've sent here. So they've gone for big, they just probably pushed it a little bit too hard in the end. Everything is well captured and layered. I love the energy on the record. I love the lyrics too. While it's not a theme or a concept record, the idea of time really has got fingerprints all over this record. It works well, and each song is quite different to the others. Probably some of the best vocal harmony work on this too. Even though Bruce didn't add a lot to this one in the writing side of things, his performance still really stands out. And the rest of the band are much tighter on this release. That looseness has gone away from the previous ones, but they haven't gone snap to the grid either. They haven't gone to the extreme to the other side. It's pretty much just right. I love the playing on this. Great performances all around. The road has really honed these guys into a well-drilled outfit. Generally longer songs in this one, however, the composition is damn well done. I admire that aspect a lot on this. Really matured in that regard when this release came out. And the way they build things and trade off is well done as well. The flip side is that parts of this don't feel quite so connected to me. It's all good, but I found little bits here and there to be a little bit disjointed. Long Distance Runner was one of those ones where it just didn't click for me. I didn't quite get how that fit everything else around it. And I also found some parts to be a touch forced, and try some might to get past that aspect. It really sticks out for me. Things like Distant Runner, also Deja Vu. So ones that you were talking about, they were the weaker tracks. For me, they really don't click as a listener. Opposing that though, there are some fantastic hooks and melodies across the board. Again, the performances themselves are amazing. There is some real darkness on this, which I like. It's a bit of a switch for this band. Nothing oppressive, just another layer to their craft coming in, which again shows the growth within the band. There are some real highlights on this, but there are some flat spots or bits that don't quite fit as well as previous works on this for me. Still good, but they're always going to come down a little bit after the last two albums were so good in my opinion. All in all, a good album, one that's progressively grown on me over the years. Not quite as riveting because I have rated this lower before, I know that for a fact, but they know how to close an album, they really do. 8 out of 10 in the end. Wasted Years, Heaven Can Wait, Stranger in a Strange Land, and Alexander the Great. I believe we've all picked Alexander the Great. So check it out for yourselves, let us know what you think.